So today we're going to be starting a mini build series on the Vitara. Now, I've been wanting to do this for a long time now, and that's put a couple of Hilux diffs under it, as I want to run bigger wheels on it. And although there's nothing wrong with these diffs, with the bigger I go with wheels, the brakes are already pretty average on 31s on a stock Vitara braking system. So yes, you can put bigger calipers and all that on there, but I thought I got these diffs at a super good price. I'm getting bigger CVs, bigger axles, way bigger brakes. I can run 35s comfortably without breaking anything, and it's all off the shelf, real common parts. Where in the front of this, with the axle situation, they're full custom axles, like both sides are custom length, custom cut splines in them. So if I was to break another axle in the front, it's you're looking at a couple month turnaround. Once he cuts the splines, it gets induction hardened, and then I get them. I don't want to go through that again, so rather than mucking around putting bigger brakes and whatnot, I thought I'm just going to bite the bullet and we'll chuck bigger diffs in it. So the reason I've only got the front one here is because we're going to start with putting all the front in, getting that all tack welded in, making sure that all works before we do the back. Now, so with the front, we're going to be going a triangulated 3-link with a panhard. So it's going to be real tight because I've got to sneak the front 3-link down the side of the sump there, which it is possible, but we've got to hopefully, when the top link goes on, as the car flexes, it's got to miss the sump and the side of the chassis rail. So hopefully we can squeeze that in without too much drama. Now I'm hoping to use the coil hats that we've welded in here. I've already measured them out and they both sit true to each other on the chassis rail. The only issue I have is with my panhard mount. It's all welded together with the coil hat this side, so if the panhard's got to move forward, I've basically got to cut this whole coil hat out and put another one in. And if I'm going to go that route, I think I'm just going to make my own coil hat so I can run a different style shock, because I'm sort of, with these coil hats, because they're Jimny coil hats, I'm stuck to the size of the shocker I can go in this, because obviously a Jimny isn't got a diesel in it, it's not got much weight in it, so you only need a small shocker, where I've got like the heavy winch on the front bull bar and the diesel in it. I can't go a bigger shock because it hits the actual body of the mount. So I'm not quite sure. I'm going to get all the diff in to where I want it and then work out sort of the coiled part later, because I want the 35, because I'm going to go 35-inch wheels. I want the 35 to sit sort of 25 mil or an inch away from this guard. I don't want to cut the back of it. I'd rather make the wheelbase longer, and if I have to later, I can cut the top to suit the 35 as it flexes. So, but that's enough talking for the minute. Let's jump straight into it. Well, that is the last time that diff's going to be in that car. Now I think what I'm going to do is I cut this line because I want to fold it over just so no dirt or muck gets in the air locker. I think what I'll do is I'll sell the air locker, just the center, and I'm gonna reuse my caps, my coil hats, sorry. And I'll just lop them off there, and at least then I can reuse it, and it saves me time and cost trying to track another set of these down. So now what we'll do is, because we're completely bare under here, I just left the panhard because I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that yet. So rather than just pulling that out, I just want to leave it there for sort of a reference. But what we'll do now we'll level the car, and I'm just going to level it side to side. I won't actually level it this way because that won't matter too much. And then we'll find center on our chassis rail, and just sit the new diff under here and just see how it's all going to sit. So we need 320 and we got 315 if you can see the line. So I think that might be too thick. Oh no, is that going to be too thick? I think that might be. So we have, oh look at that, spot on. 320. We'll just go over and double check the other side. 320, perfect. Now you don't have to use a laser. I just happen to have that here and not like your plumb stick, so it can be annoying using one of them, but they self-level, so. So I've taken a ton of measurements and I'm quite happy with how they're actually sitting now. I've divided up a 35 because I don't have tires here. I'm just going to have to do it all by measurement. So I've gone half a 35 back from there, and then I've allowed another 25 mil because obviously I want 25 mil clearance from my guard, and whatever the front's going to be, I'll cut to suit. I've got my laser set up. So I've got center of chassis here and a reference point down there for center, because obviously this chassis rail tapers off as you get to the front. And now I've got center of diff there, so it's all center and parallel to the chassis rail. Now my panhard mount is going to work. It's probably the actual bar, the panhard rod is probably going to have to change. As you can see, it sits right over the pumpkin. Look, I may change it yet. I might move it forward if I get the room, because the further I go forward, the more I'm going to clear the sump. And because the oil pump in the motor is right at the front of the sump, I can't even cut the sump. So if you look at my coil mounts, they're actually going to be on the back side of the diff, which it's not too bad. It was before, but the more I have, the more central it is on the axle, the more up and down weight it's going to be. Rather, the further I go back, it's going to give it leverage, which is going to want to yank the diff back, put more load on the links, but it is a little Vitara. It's only very light, so I don't think that'll be a problem. But a couple of these actual mounts are all bent up, because when I had the old coils in, they used to fall out and they'd bend just bend these bump stop mounts. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep these coil towers or not. Like, that's still on the maybe list. I want to get the links in first, and then at least we can drop the diff down and all our links are in. So what we can do now is start making our cross member for the middle and getting our links set up in there. That was pretty critical, that measurement, because you can't cut off millimeters with this saw because it'll just crack the blade. All right, we're just tackling making this mount here, and ideally the center of this bush wants to run in the center of my other bushes, but what I'll have to do is set this back, because I still need to be able to weld this to my chassis rails, and I don't think if I have that right forward there, I'm not going to get the MIG in there cleanly enough to get a good weld up there. So I'll have to sit this mount back and then tilt the mount on the diff. All right, well, we've got all our bottom arms tacked in. I just finished making the top arm bracket, which is looking something like that. Now, I've made this way too tall because I want it as high as possible, but I'm very governed by all that's going on here. I've got engine mounts, the sump, and obviously, like I said earlier, when it articulates or flexes side to side, this is going to pivot, and it's got a missed chassis rail, sump, and everything else. So I've just gone ahead and just sort of tacked something together. I've still got to plate it all that side, but I'll wait to find out my height, and then we can work out where it's going to get welded. Now, I can't make the top arm because I'm still waiting on the ends, because I want this top arm to be adjustable. So if for whatever reason I've got to slightly adjust it, I can just crack the 2 locking nuts and adjust it in or out to suit my needs. Now, I've gone ahead and made this cross member, as you would have seen me make. This is where all our arms are going to attach to. This will be completely welded on. It's all just tacked on for the minute, because it's going to have to come out again, because I've got to weld on our 3rd link bracket to this, which I'm yet to work out the location, because depending where it's going to go up there, which will determine where it gets welded on here. And because we got our floor just here, this mount's going to be pretty much as close as we can to this cross member. Now, I was able to utilize this factory Vitara gearbox mount, and I wanted to gusset at the front there anyway, which you can see I've done, and our mount just bolts on there, and the other one's up in here. Now, the only downside is, because these mounts, as you can see, stick on the bottom, the car is not completely flat underneath, which I really wanted, but with using these big arms here, which again are way overkill, but I really like the design of these bushings in here. Now, I should have mentioned earlier, these are Land Rover front Series 2 radius arms, and I've cut the ends off because they run like a big cone rubber bushing in there. And I'll give you an example in a minute, but these flex and move really well. I didn't want to go like rose joints or Heim joints or like your Super Pro bushes. I want it to all move so you don't get much vibration in the car if you're going down your corrugated roads and whatnot. So that's why I went with those. I've yet to make a side gearbox mount here. Like here's the factory Vitara one here that will fit up in there, but it's just more holes and it's going to start getting too tight there. I want as much room as I can, because I'm not sure if the exhaust is going to run down this side, or I'm going to try and sneak it down this side, even though I got brake cables here, which is not ideal. But depending where the link goes is where the exhaust is going to go, because the exhaust is a 2.5 inch, even if I have to shrink it down to 2 inch, which I can do, but we'll just have to see what room we got when we get there. Now, the whole reason these links had to come under is because with our drive shaft here, this is just Vitara uni joint here, and if I have to go bigger, I want the room to do so, and at the minute we can. The gearbox can go up another 10 mil before it hits the floor, so if we have to, we could always put a spacer under here, a 10 mil spacer for say, and then we're going to have heaps of room to put a Hilux or something a bit stronger in there. So what I'll do for the minute is I'll just cut the shaft and graft in probably a Hilux uni in the front, and I don't think I'll break these ones up here. Like, I've never done one before. The ones that used to wear out in the back, we resolved that problem with fixing that pinion angle. So it'll just sort of depend on vibration and whatnot, because vibration kills a lot. So now the arms do come tight to the chassis rail. We got about, it doesn't look like it, but we got about 20 mil each side. Actually, that side I made 30, because when the diff, because it's panhard front end, as the diff pivots up, it's going to move to one side, so I allowed more room that side. It should all work pretty well. So at ride height, these arms will be near flat, and that top arm, even though it's not ideal, that will be on the angle. But that's just sort of the way it has to go with the clearance that I've got. I did also go ahead and I machined up all these body lift blocks. Now these are a 30mm block. I've still got to do these little ones in here, but I went ahead and put them in everywhere else before I started anything, just to get my clearances. Now the pinion angle is set to factory Hilux pinion angle, which is 7 degrees, and I measured that from a mate's standard Hilux on his farm. So whether that's true or not, like that could have been changed in its life, but that's what we measured off that's what we measured off his, and that's what we're going to be running with. That's why I want that top control arm to be adjustable, so we can get our caster angle completely right. It didn't bump steer before or do anything silly, so I want the same thing on this. Alright, I've got another set of Land Rover radius arms here, and I'll put them in the vise and show you what I mean by how much they flex. And just for reference, if I can flick it up, take the nut off that. This is a Nissan Patrol trailing arm or front lower radius arm bush, and that's like the size difference. So we got quite a big difference in rubber. Yes, these front ones don't flex that well, but because it's a triangulated 3-link, these won't have to do much work. It'll all be in this back bushing here. Alright, so that's how much the arm moves with just letting go, and it's not pivoting in the vise. And you can lift it all the way up there, all the way down there, and look how much angle you get off that. Like, pretty good for a factory rubber bush if you ask me. You can see how tight our clearances are on this. We're still going to be able to get our diff center out. At the same time, our control arm needs to be able to clear this chassis rail here. So everything's getting so tight. But the good thing is, our pumpkin, our diff pumpkin, is going to clear the sump and chassis rail. And with the panhard, as the diff sort of comes up here, you can see our panhard mount, our diff's going to pull back. So it should be pretty good on clearing this panhard rod. But what we'll have to do is, we'll have to cut the boss off on the end of the panhard rod, and we're going to come straight out and then down. So rather than cutting all this mount off for now, like, we can always change it later to suit, but I think now, just at least get it back so I can use it again, I'm just going to cut that panhard rod. And then our steering here, we're going to put a drop arm in, so we'll probably heat this arm back up and step it down like you see those drop pitman arms, and then that'll run on the same angle as our panhard, and at least brings our pitman arm further down to clear our radiator pipes in here, even though I got to lift that one up because it's just hanging a bit too low. And that should be sort of the steering done. Well, at this point, we're now waiting on parts, so I really wanted to get that top link in and cycle the suspension in this video, but it's just not going to happen. People don't seem to keep parts in stock anymore, so you got to wait and wait and wait, which makes it hard. But so this is actually my first ever build. Like, I've built everything myself, like even the bracketry, everything I've made. Like, at least when me and Dad did the first one, we got all the brackets laser cut and got all nice things done. But I thought, rather than doing all that, it's by the time you cut up laser cut ones and draw it all up, I thought I'll just make them all myself. So the way I pictured it in my head is the way it's turning out, which is always good. Like I always say, if you can't build it in your head, you shouldn't be doing it, whether I'm wrong or right, but that's just the way I've always done it. So there's been a lot of sleepless nights thinking about how I was going to do it and how it was all going to work, and it's always nice to sit back and look at what you've done and it's turning out just the way you want it. So pretty excited to get it all done. Finally going to have some big boy tyres on it. No more little 31s. But it is a shame because I actually just bought those wheels off Michael and now they're going to be sold again. They've done, what, 3 trips. But the old diff was fun, had fun, but it's finally time to make the front and rear flex really well. We're going to have no more rear steer with such them short arms. The back will be a double triangulated 4-link. But I'm going to leave it at that one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.